All right, looks like we're at 7 o'clock exactly, so we're going to get started with our webinar. So first of all, thank you everybody for taking the time out of your evening to join us for this webinar. Hopefully everybody can hear me, so we're going to actually check that out. So if you can hear me, you should be able to see my screen right now. You'll see an older gentleman looking at a gas meter, and for some reason they put my my picture dead smack in the middle and then in the lower left. So if you can hear me and you can see my screen, please just type in the dashboard that you see there under the questions that you can hear or see me, or just say yes. Because every once in a while we come across some technical problems with our provider. So good, it looks like we're not having any issues. Fantastic, so thank you. So again, my name is Chris Sharafacy. I've been a technical trainer with American Home Inspectors Training, or AHIT, since 2007. I started field training with AHIT in 2002. I also run my own home inspection company in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I've been a home inspector for 20 years, almost 20 years. I'm also a state licensed building inspector and a state licensed electrical inspector. And then I have some ancillary certifications as well. And we'll talk about what the ancillary certifications, what they are, what they all mean. So just like a lot of you, hopefully, I went through the AHIT training myself, did not have any sort of background whatsoever when I went through the training. So I was basically as green can be. I had to study harder than a lot of other people. I had to do more practice inspections than a lot of other home inspectors, but it was something that I was really interested in doing. It was almost, I was very passionate about becoming a home inspector. So again, I went through the training. I followed what AHIT, their plan. So their technical training, teaching you how to perform a technical home inspection, as well as their business and marketing piece. So for you individuals that want to start your own home inspection business, we do include that. But again, we'll talk a little bit more about that. So what we did with this webinar is we took a lot of questions that we have received throughout the years from individuals like yourself, like myself, before I went through. And we compiled it into this webinar where hopefully a lot of those questions that you have are going to be answered, such as, liability. What about insurance? What about ancillary services? Licensing, the exam. So hopefully a lot of that will be answered for you. I will open it up at the very end for questions. We do have one of our admissions reps that is going to be answering some basic questions that you may have, such as, when's the next class location? Obviously, with this pandemic that's going on, things are a little bit different right now, but our admissions team will be able to answer those questions, such as, where the training center is located, how much, when's the next class, how does the class work, and so forth. So let's get started. So it is estimated that in the United States, approximately 77% of homes are inspected. So we'll just round that up to 80%, which is a good number. Now, the majority of inspections that you perform are going to be for the person that is buying the property. So the person that's buying the property is going to account for probably 99% of your business. There's also pre-sale or pre-listing inspections, which are performed for the seller. So before they put their house up for sale, they have a home inspector come through. Home inspector fills out a property condition or fills out a home inspection report. Then that seller can address any issues that maybe were found or any items that may need attention. Because of the deals that fall through, and you'll hear this, some of you probably have a spouse as a realtor or know a realtor, but out of the deals that fall through, the the majority of the deals that fall through are because of the home inspection. Actually, 75% of deals that fall through are because of the home inspection. So if that seller can take that inspection report and address, any issues or potential issues, whatever, before they put their house up on the market or for sale, that obviously can really get rid of a huge potential hurdle. This is a referral-based business. The number one referral source for home inspectors is the real estate agent or the realtor. You're also, once your business gets established, you'll also start getting inspections from past clients, again. But then you also have like lenders. Lenders are another one. But realtors are by far the highest percentage of referral-based business that you'll obtain. I would say with my business, if you took away obviously past clients that were buying houses again, 100% of my business is referral based from somebody that knows me. And again, the majority of that is going to be from a realtor. Like last week, I did 10 inspections, and out of those 10 inspections, all 10 were from realtors. Or I should say 9 were from realtors. One was from a client that I did an inspection for. I actually did it for her daughter a couple of weeks ago. And then the mother was buying a property. So she called me because the mother was at the inspection for her daughter, and she called me. And so that's where the majority of your business is going to be coming from. Of course, there's also social media, there's the internet. What I will tell you with that though, like the internet, and if you go on these home inspector like forums and sites, for the different associations, you're going to get different opinions on things. You're going to have inspectors that say, I get a lot of my business from my website or, from Google, which is fine. But what I'll tell you is it's much easier to book an inspection when it's coming from a referral source, because that referral source has already sold you. They're the one that has talked you up. They're the one that has kind of explained everything to the client. Because if a realtor has worked with a client showing houses for an extended period of time, they've built rapport and trust with that person. So then when they find a house, it's, well, who should I use for the home inspection? Oh, use this person. They do a fantastic job, and so forth. Compared to, again, if they're just finding me from Google, a lot of times people are price shopping. So I now have to try to sell myself, which is fine, but you're not as likely to book that home inspection. The average price of a home inspection, now it does vary depending on where you live. Typically, urban, higher populated areas, the price of a home inspection is higher than a rural, less populated area. Also, often states that have some sort of regulations or licensing, usually the price of the inspection is a little bit higher. But again, depending on where you live, the inspection can go up significantly or it can go down a little bit. Now, when I say down a little bit, it's not going to be like $100. Don't ever perform a home inspection for $100. And most home inspectors add what they call ancillary or add-on services to their inspection business. Now, it's highly recommended that you add ancillary or add-on services, because if you don't, your competitor is. So what that means, let's just say, now the number one ancillary service for home inspectors is radon. Okay, so radon is very popular, but it also depends where you live. You could live in like Florida. Wind mitigation inspections are very common. You might live in an area that has termites or wood destroying organisms. Those are all things that are in addition to your overall inspection. So let's just say you do 400 inspections a year, okay? And out of those 400 inspections, let's say 85% of those inspections, they request a radon test. That would be, so out of the 400, 340 inspections are having an additional service added to them. Now, the average price of radon is anywhere between, for most areas, is anywhere between $125 to $150. So if I do 340 times, let's just say, we'll go on the high end, we'll just say 150. That's $51,000 on top of the inspection. Now, that's a lot of money for an ancillary service. You may live in an area that has radon and termites. So like where I live, radon is the most common. And in Wisconsin, if you have a VA loan, you have to have a termite or a wood destroying organism inspection done. And I do those as well. So I charge $150 for those. So if I'm charging $150 for radon and $150 for the wood destroying insect inspection, that's $300 on top of my $400 average fee for the home inspection. That's a $700 day for me. And if I do 2 of those in a day, obviously you can do the math, that money adds up very quickly. So if you don't do ancillary, somebody else does, that money's going to somebody else. The other thing is real estate agents, they want to work, which makes complete sense. They want to work with one-stop shops. It's much easier to call one company that does pretty much everything that's common for the area that you live in. I just built a house and I was the general contractor for it, and it was a pain trying to find subcontractors and having everybody lined up and ready to go and all that stuff. I would have paid more money if I could have called one company that did everything. And most people will. So it is about convenience, but there's also about adding additional money to your overall business model. The average income of a single inspector or single home inspector is $70,000. You can make $70,000 part-time, no problem. Okay. It all depends on how many inspections you want to perform. Maybe you want to do it full-time, which you absolutely can do this full-time, but maybe you just want to do one inspection a day. And I'll just tell you from experience, I've been on both sides of the business. I was in a job that I hated, so I quit the job and I became a full-time home inspector. I started my own business, and I was doing about 15 inspections a week. Now I do home inspections part-time because I train for AHIT. Now, obviously, with this COVID virus going around, I'm doing inspections kind of full-time until things kind of get back in the groove and under control. For me, it's a fantastic balance because I love what I do. I love home inspecting, but I also love teaching home inspections. So you just have to find kind of your sweet spot. If you're in a job that you absolutely love, don't quit that job. Maybe though that job does not pay as much as you want and you want to supplement your income, you absolutely can do so. I mean, home inspection really is a perfect fit for that. Now, what about liability? So this is a question, that I had before I even became a home inspector, because when you talk to other home inspectors, they can be a little frightening. They can be a little discouraging. When I got into this, it was, you're going to get sued. If you don't have a construction background, you absolutely can't be a home inspector, blah, 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 blah. People that were just trying to keep me out of the business. Well, I didn't have a construction background. I had zero construction whatsoever, like literally Nothing. And like I said earlier, I wanted to do this. So AHIT helped me get to where I wanted to be. And like I mentioned, I also became a building inspector. And I worked for a town for 2 years as their building inspector. If you want to do this, we can help you achieve that. So going through professional training reduces liability, because it's not just about, when you're a home inspector, it's not just about performing a technical home inspection. It's not just about filling out a home inspection report and giving it to the client saying, here. A lot of what we're doing is not just writing it down, but verbal communication. We're showing the client their home. We're pointing things out to them. So going through professional training, of course, we're going to teach you how to perform a technical home inspection. But we're also going to work with you on report writing, meaning when you find something that needs attention, what is the proper verbiage to put in your inspection report to reduce your liability as a home inspector? We also work on communication skills, because again, when you find something that needs attention in a house, because perfect houses, they don't exist. I don't care if the house is brand new. My house is a month old, and there's things that are not perfect about it, which is good, because if there were perfect houses, we wouldn't exist. Now, you're going to go through houses that don't have any major problems, but you're always going to find little things. Like today, I inspected, or this afternoon, I actually inspected a house that was built in 1899. And there were things that were wrong with it, but there was nothing that was end of the world. The big ticket items, that's what I am interested in, finding. There's always going to be little things, tripping hazards, areas that need to be painted, caulked, grading. So that's the norm. But by going through professional training, we work on all of those things to help reduce your liability. We teach you to be what I call precisely vague. An example of that would be if I was inspecting a property and I was in the bedroom and I'm looking at the walls and ceiling and so forth, and I see that there's a moisture stain on the ceiling, and it's in the southwest corner of that ceiling. Now, in my inspection report, I'm not going to document that there's a moisture stain in the southwest corner of the ceiling. Instead, I'm going to document that there's a moisture stain on the ceiling. So what I did there was I got rid of southwest. That was being a little too precise, because if another moisture stain showed up in a different location on that ceiling, I have just opened myself up for liability. But by being precisely vague and saying ceiling instead of documenting a specific location, I'm now covered. Also, having the client with you reduces your liability by about 75%, they say. That's a significant percentage. Is it easier to perform a home inspection? Is it quicker to get done with the inspection if the client's not with you? Of course it is. But when the client is with you, at the end of the day, it's easier. In my experience, it's easier. I would rather have the client with me, because there are things that, again, if I find that need attention, I can explain to them. So they're not just looking at basically a piece of paper, so to speak. It's like if you went to the doctor and you had a physical, or you had all these tests done, whatever, and you got your test results back. It's much different if the doctor explains to you what numbers mean, like what a cholesterol number is, and so forth, other than you just getting a readout, or your findings, so to speak, and you trying to interpret them. So that's having the client with you is very important. It also gives the client an opportunity to see their house again. Like I mentioned, you get to build rapport with that person and show them how their house operates. Plus, they're watching you do all of these things. It's they're much less likely to call you back and say, "Well, you didn't open those windows in that bedroom, or you didn't check any outlets. You were with me the whole time. You watched me do these things." An inspection agreement. Now, most regulated states will require you to basically have your client fill out or sign an inspection agreement before you start the home inspection. Don't ever, and I repeat, even if you don't go through our training, which again, we hope you do, but if you do go with another training provider, I want you to remember this. Don't ever perform a home inspection without having the client sign an inspection agreement. Because if you do, and you have errors and omissions insurance, your errors and omissions company, the insurance company, will not cover a claim unless you have a signed inspection agreement. Like I just renewed my insurance about a week ago, or 2 weeks ago, and they just sent me a reminder basically that said, it's kind of like with car insurance, if you get into an accident, do these things right away. The number one thing was, no matter what, before you perform a home inspection, have a signed inspection agreement. Because the agreement outlines what you're going to do and what you're not going to do. It also outlines that they're going to pay us. It also outlines how long we're liable for. Having a good inspection report. Now, you're going to see reports out there that have a bunch of bells and whistles and other things built into them. And I will tell you from, again, experience, and it's not because I work for AHIT. Like I said, I have my own home inspection company. With my own home inspection company, I can use whatever software I want. And I've looked at other softwares, because it's like if you grow up and your dad is always like, you know what, Chevy's the best. They're the absolute best. And that's what you believe. And then one day you drive a Ford and you're like, I love that Ford. You have to find what you like, So I do use the AHIT product. And the reason that I use it is because the agents that I work with have said to me, we like how your report is laid out. It's easy for us to dissect, and it's easy for the client to comprehend. That's all I need. Well, it's also easy for me to fill out. When I leave a home inspection, my report is done. It's filled out. When I left this house this afternoon, and it was a big house, again, 1899, it was 3,300 square feet. When I left that property, my report was done. So I don't go home and spend another hour working on the report. To me, that's a waste of time. The best time to fill out the report is when you're at the property. But at the end of the day, the inspection report is what would show up if there was any sort of disagreement with a client. Carrying the proper insurance. So we do recommend errors and omissions insurance. That will also include a general liability policy. So E&O insurance, that would protect you if you missed something. And then general liability would cover you if, let's say, you left an oven on and it caused smoke damage, or you were on the roof, you didn't tie off your ladder. Ladder fell and went through the seller's windshield of his vehicle. General liability would cover that. And then a lot of home inspectors will form like an LLC, an S Corp, some do a sole proprietorship. I'm not an attorney, I'm not an accountant, I'm not an insurance agent. All I can tell you is the best protection at the end of the day is using all of these different kind of bullets that you see here. The one that I absolutely, all of them. I can't say one that I would absolutely, because I carry insurance. I have my client sign an inspection agreement. before. So I use a digital signature system. It's called Hello Sign. I always recommend my client be there. I would say 99% of inspections that I perform, my client is with me. I do have one tomorrow that the client will not be there because the client lives out of state. So all of these are very important things to be a successful home inspector and to reduce liability. And then don't forget, I mean, if you've already talked to one of our admissions reps, I'm sure they have mentioned, once you are an AHIT student and after, you have unlimited technical support, meaning if you have questions, of course, on any coursework or anything after you graduate and you're a home inspector, you can always call us. One thing that I've seen, and it's kind of sad to see it, because it's not a bad association, and it's not the association's fault by any means. But one of the national associations has a large forum on Facebook, and inspectors ask questions all the time, and it's pretty sad to see when a question from somebody new gets asked, he or she gets bashed. Like, you're an idiot, you shouldn't be, in this industry, blah, blah, blah. We all start out new. So that's the only thing that can be a little discouraging, because people get to the point then and they're like, well, I'm not going to ask any questions then. Who wants to be attacked? So home inspection offers a lot of career benefits. You can do it, like I mentioned, part-time or full-time. Maybe you want to make a career change and do it full-time, you absolutely can. You choose the hours you want to work. This weekend I have a webinar that I have to do for 4 days. So I'm not booking any inspections for 4 days. So when I had 2 people call today and say, I need to book a home inspection, and I just said, my first availability is Monday. And they said, okay, because both of them came from a referral source. And again, the referral source had already sold me. But again, if you can only work after 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock during summer, book an inspection. People, I mean, again, right now the world's a little bit different with this, again, this pandemic. A lot of people are working from home, but people don't want to, work, or well, who wants to work, right? But a lot of people don't want to take off of work to attend an inspection. If they can do it on the weekend, or if they can do it after work, so they don't have to blow through vacation time, fantastic. The majority of our graduates will go on to run their own home inspection business. That's what I recommend, but you can always work for somebody if you wanted to. Maybe you want to buy a franchise, or like I said, maybe you want to work for an already established company, get some experience under your belt. There's no wrong answer. It's your life. Do what you feel comfortable doing. And then if you decide to move, you can still practice. Now, of course, it depends where you're going to move. You may have to meet some additional educational requirements or take a test, but we can help you out with that. And a college degree is not required. If you have one, fantastic. If you don't worry. If you're in a regulated state, there aren't any states that require a college degree for a home inspector. The minimum requirement would be either a high school diploma or a GED. Now, your state may have a background check, which makes complete sense. You have to have some sort of consumer protection. You can't let felons that have aggressive history behind them into people's houses. So, there might be a background check depending on where you live. And then startup expenses are very low compared to other businesses. And you can make that money back in a short period of time. So if you're doing, let's say, 10 inspections in a week, and you're charging $385, well, that's $3,800 and $85 per week that you're making. pretty good. That's more money than most people make in a month. So it's not all about money, but it helps. You have to be a people person to be successful in this. You have to enjoy being around people. And again, I'm telling you that from experience. I've met a lot of home inspectors that just want to be left alone. This is a service industry. We're providing a service for people. They're excited about their house. I mean, it doesn't really bode well with realtors if you're just like, I just want to do the inspection and they can show up at the very end and I'll, blah, blah, blah. Again, is it easier to do that? Of course it is. But now I have to spend an hour, maybe more, going through everything with them. When it's much easier, at least in my eyes, to have the client with me so I can show and explain things. Now, some states, like I mentioned, do have licensing or regulation requirements. This number, I believe this number has gone up. I want to say this number now is about 35. So roughly 35 states have some sort of licensing or regulation. If you're not sure, you can always call AHIT, and I'll give you a number at the end of this, along with a little discount. So again, if your state does require licensing, make sure that you are choosing a school that meets the education requirements. Don't just rely on what the school has told you. If you are in a regulated state, my advice is go to that state's website and verify that that school is an approved pre-licensing education provider. Is live training, distance learning, or both required? Again, depends where you live. If you live in like Washington State, for example, Washington State will only accept live training. So if you're looking at a school and they say, oh, for Washington State, you could take our online course and you'll be fine. That's not correct. That's not true. So it does depend on where you live. Some states require both, where you have to do a little bit of distance learning and then you have to do some hands-on. Does my state require an exam? So out of those, let's say 35, like 34 of them require the National Home Inspector's exam. And it might even be 35 out, it might be a total of 35 now. I know that there were two, actually it is, I believe, there were two, New York and North Carolina did not require the National Home Inspector's exam, but North Carolina, I believe, just went to that NHIE exam as of June of this year. So we are the only training provider in the country that if you live in a state that requires you to take the National Home Inspector's exam, we're the only school that provides you with the two inspector, basically what they're called is the NHIE manuals. So they are written by the Examination Board of Professional Home Inspectors. That's the group that writes the test. So we give you these books to help prepare you for the exam. Does my state require me to do ride-along inspections? Some states do, like Arizona, for example, does. Massachusetts, Connecticut. So there are some states that have that requirement. Again, if you call our admissions department, they can help you out with any questions that you have regarding your state. Does my state have specific standards of practice, or can I use a national association standards of practice? So I know I sound like a broken record. It depends on where you live. I'm in a regulated state, Wisconsin, but Wisconsin uses the AHIT standards from, I believe it's 1998. Well, the latest AHIT standards are from 2014. They are different, but I can't use the 2014 standards of practice. I have to use what Wisconsin had put in place when they started their whole regulation requirement in 1998. But it does depend on where you live. Like if you live in Iowa, Iowa is an unregulated state. I can use any standards of practice that I want. And then are there specific insurance requirements? Again, some states have a minimum requirement. Like, again, where I live, even though it's a state where I have to be registered and I have to take the national exam, I have to take a second, like not a second, but another exam that pertains to Wisconsin statutes and administrative rules, but there aren't any requirements for me in regards to carrying insurance. Yet I live in a state where I cannot limit my liability. Yet the state doesn't require me to carry insurance. Now I do, just in case, but it does depend on where you live. Now, what if I live in a state that does not regulate or license inspectors? Why should I go through the training? You know, I've been a contractor for 30 years. I know how a house is built, or I've been an electrician for 30 years, or a plumber. I wouldn't argue that you know how a house is built. My argument would be, for 30 years, you did everything up to the latest building code. From a home inspection standpoint, we don't do that. Like I mentioned, I was in a house today from 1899 where it didn't predate the National Electric Code, but it predated building codes. So what you have to ask yourself is it serving its intended purpose? Is it safe? Could it be a liability issue for my client? So that's the biggest thing is home inspectors, we don't build, we don't install. We basically look at things to make sure, really the number one is that it's safe and it's not going to be a huge expense for the client. Remember who our referral sources are. The days of, and it used to be this way. Years ago, it was this way, where a contractor would show up after work, you know, after being out on a job site all day, and they would perform a home inspection. They'd walk around with a notepad and they'd write things down. Well, they were writing things down typically that pertained to this isn't up to code. Again, we don't do that because when a deal falls through, and deals will fall through, if you're the one that busted the deal up by something stupid or amateur that you said, you will never get another home inspection from that real estate agent or probably that office ever again. Trust me on this. I've been doing this long enough. Now, I would never say, and you're going to hear inspectors say, you know, well, agents don't want me to write down, you know, if there's a problem, they don't want me to write down. Maybe some, maybe, and there's always going to be shady home inspectors. There's always going to be shady real estate agents. It's no matter what you do. Those are the people you don't want to work with. Agents want you to find the problems, but there's a big but there. It's how you deliver your findings. You could scare the living daylights out of somebody. As simple as, oh God, or people are emotional, excuse me, when they're buying a property. They don't know you. They don't know what your expressions or any of that it means. You may not think, well, I didn't really mean anything by it. Think of it this way. No, it's not the exact same thing, but you go to your doctor. Doctor looks at your chart and says, oh God, or that's not good. I don't know about you. I would freak out. So people are that emotional. I kid you not. You'll see. You'll see. One day you'll be like, yep, he was right. So real estate agents, lenders, banks have their client's best interest in mind and want the best inspector to represent their client. Absolutely. Because when that person goes to buy another house down the road, if that whole experience was a good one, they're gonna call that realtor again, and they're gonna call that home inspector again. If it was bad and the realtor's the one that referred you, they may not use that real estate agent again, and they're sure not going to use you again. So they want to work with individuals who have the proper training and skills, and that goes back to the being professionally trained, because it's not all technical. A good, or let's just say a successful home inspector has good technical skills, but also has really good people and communication skills. If I had to hire somebody, and this is just me personally, if I had to hire somebody, the first thing that I would look for is somebody that has good people skills. So somebody that is or has past experience in customer service, in marketing, in sales, because I can teach you how to perform a technical home inspection. It's more difficult to teach somebody how to be good with people. Public speaking, that's more difficult. But I didn't have any of that. I didn't have public speaking. I was nervous as hell on my first office presentation. I was nervous as hell visiting open houses. But AHIT helped me along the way. They helped me overcome those fears. And like anything, it gets easier the more you do it. So going through a training provider such as AHIT will differentiate you from your competitors. Now, if you are in a regulated state, often you're going to have a certain amount of continuing education. A lot of states, it's a 2-year renewal. Like where I live, it's every 2 years. Like in Illinois, it's November 30th of even numbered years. So every 2 years. Oregon, every 2 years. So different states have different requirements. So again, typically you're going to have to renew your license every 2 years. Some states, it's every year. And CE is very easy to obtain. CE is continuing education. You can obtain it by attending conferences. Obviously, there's not as many going on right now. Online. So don't worry about CE. That's easy to obtain. And then we do have a vast library of online CE courses. So this picture here is actually, I was with a training class in Wisconsin, one of our live training locations, which if you are close or you're willing to drive to a live training course, that's the one that I would do. Now, again, with this pandemic, it might not be feasible. So, you know, let's make a positive out of this. What's happening right now, not good. But it's going to give you an opportunity to go through all of your online, to study everything, to get comfortable with the books and the material. And this was something that I had I thought going against me, but it really wasn't. I mean, again, I had to study a little bit harder, but it doesn't matter what your background is. If you want to do this, we can absolutely help you get to where you want to be. So we train individuals from many different backgrounds, as you can see here: sales, pilots, military, police, firefighters. It doesn't matter what your background is. We will help you if you want to be a home inspector. So these are the technical topics that you're going to learn. And these topics, they're in the standards of practice. So that's why you see them here. So structure, exteriors, roofing, electrical, plumbing, heating and cooling, interiors, insulation and ventilation, and then fireplaces and solid fuel burning appliances. And then we also include our business and marketing piece. So that's for the individuals that want to start their own business. What can you inspect? So of course, home inspectors focus on residential, typically 1 to 4 or 1 to 5 dwelling units. If you're going to do new construction inspections, then you have to be familiar with the building codes that are being used in your area. Light commercial inspections. So commercial Property inspections are not regulated. And then ancillary, so don't forget about our add-ons. That would be radon, termites, wind mitigation, and so forth. And we do actually have a online commercial inspection course. So how does our training work? So in addition to the technical aspects of performing a home inspection, we cover report writing and marketing, like I mentioned. Live training, you get to actually go out on actual inspections. Distance learning is a go-at-your-own pace course done in the comfort of your own home. Hybrid is a combination of the distance learning and the live training. So as you can see there, the live training is going to vary depending on where you live. Distance learning is go at your own pace, and hybrid is a combination of both. Now, what materials are included? So we include our practical guide to home inspection, which we write our own books. We include our marketing and operating a profitable home inspection business. If you live in a state that requires you to take the NHIE exam, we include the 2 manuals. We include, just for practice, a home inspection paper report. We include some basic tools, which you probably already have, but inspection mirror, GFCI tester, and a 2-prong circuit tester. And then don't forget about the unlimited support from AHIT. Now, there's 2 different types of reports that are used in the industry. There's a written paper book, so to speak, which a written paper book is something that is obsolete. You would no longer use that unless it was like your tablet or something got busted. You'd want to use a digital report because you can customize it, you can add pictures, and you can email it. So ours is called Inspect It by AHIT, and we give you a 1-year basically lease of that product. Some basic tools, you'll have other tools, of course. So a voltage sniffer, voltage indicator, that'll tell you if something is live or has power to it. A 3-prong tester with a GFCI button to test GFCI receptacles, which most standards require you to do. Not every outlet that you test is going to be 3-prong, so 2-prong tester like an older house. Combustible gas detector would be used to check for gas leaks. A good rechargeable flashlight. You're going to be in dark areas. You want those areas to be obviously lit up, attics, crawl spaces. 17-foot multi-position ladder like a little giant. Now, if I can't get on a roof with that ladder, I'll view it from the ground with binoculars. Some people use a drone. Water pressure gauge, that'll tell you what the water pressure is in the house, because if it's over 80 PSI, we'd recommend a plumber. A non-invasive moisture meter, so if you see a moisture stain, that'll confirm if it's active. A telescoping mirror to look behind things, also check for drafting, but you'll have like a screwdriver, you'll have a tape measure, you'll have a bunch of other things that we'll go over with you in class. So now we are getting near the end, so the AHIT Advantage. So some highlights, let's call it that. So our mission is to provide you with industry-leading home inspection training and support, helping you to realize your full potential in the home inspection industry. So we have over 70 live training locations. We include our business and marketing. You get to perform actual home inspections in our live training, which is fantastic because you're out with an instructor. We are an approved education provider for pre-licensing as well as continuing education if you live in a regulated state. We also have partner schools that will help you with ancillary certifications. So for example, the termite course that I took is through a partner school, Purdue University out of Indiana. Radon, we work with ECAN on that for radon certification, which is NRPP approved. We have instructors on call 7 days a week. So we're the only school actually that has that. We have myself, John, Steve, and Jim on call. So if you are having a question on your schoolwork, or maybe you're out in the field, you can always call us and you can actually get a home inspector, not just somebody that is passing you on to different people. You'll actually get to speak to an instructor. If you live in a regulated state, we include the 2 NHIE, which is the National Home Inspector Exam manuals. And we do have the latest books in the industry. We've been around since 1993, and we have over 50,000 graduates. So, you know, that's, and we'll get into kind of questions here in a little bit, but that's something that you should be asking when you're researching other companies is how long have you been in business? How many home inspectors have you trained? Do you have actual home inspectors that are on call? We do have our Wisconsin location. If you do have GI Bill educational benefits, our Brookfield, Wisconsin class is approved for those benefits. Now, these are some questions. So if you want to take out your phone and screenshot this, or if you're at your computer, you can screenshot this. So these are questions to ask other home inspection training schools. Because again, if you're doing your homework, if you're researching it, so how long have you been in business? How many inspectors have you trained? Because again, there's a lot of schools that are just popping up overnight. Do you offer business and marketing training as part of your curriculum, or do you just focus on technical training? Does your course help with report writing? How many live training locations do you have across the United States? Do you provide physical books or just PowerPoint slides? So when you see a class, for example, or a school that is offering everything plus the kitchen sink for like $600 or $700, there's going to be nothing physical that you're getting, okay? And if they say it leads to full certification for like radon, follow up with them and ask, will it lead to NRPP certification? Do you have full-time experienced home inspectors on call to answer questions 7 days a week? Does your course prepare me to pass the National Home Inspectors exam? If so, how? Well, like I mentioned, we're the only school in the country that gives you the books that are written by the Examination Board of Professional Home Inspectors. Do you offer lifetime support to your graduates that covers technical and marketing? So if you have any marketing questions, you can always call us. Do you have your own reporting software? Now, that's another thing. We give you a 1-year lease on our software, which is called Inspect It. But if you are looking at another provider, like I mentioned, that throws everything in, they say, you know, you get certified in commercial, radon, blah, 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 and we give you software, all for the price of $700, run and run fast. Because I promise you, it's not going to lead to what you think it's going to lead. Are you affiliated with colleges, universities, and real estate companies for training? If you attend one of our live training courses, well, right now, it's probably not going to be at a college just because a lot of colleges are closed down right now. So it might be at an actual hotel because hotels are open. Are you approved to teach pre-licensing and continuing education courses? Again, if you're in a regulated state, got to go with somebody who is actually approved by that state. Will the add-on courses or ancillary that you have lead to an actual state certification, or are they just PDFs from another source? Which again, I just want everybody to be careful. We work very hard for our money, and we don't want to just be sold something because it's the cheapest price. If you're making a career change, make sure that you invest properly and you do it right. So you can go on to our website, ahit.com/training. You can look at our reviews. You can also look at our instructors that we have. And then we do have our admissions team available to answer any questions that you may have. They're very helpful. They'll be able to answer questions, again, how much, the next training class, all of that good stuff. So if you call our 800-441-9411, you can speak to one of our admissions reps. So let's just see what we have for questions. Is there a minimum water pressure? You mentioned a max. I mean, it's really up to the client. and I mean, it's up to you as well. If you turn on a faucet and it's kind of just trickling out, then I would say that, that's not going to be sufficient. So, anything like 30, 40, I mean, 40 or higher is going to, of course, be better. But those, like using a pressure gauge for water, you don't have to do that. There's nothing in the standards that says you have to actually do a water pressure test. So another question, why do you feel it won't lead to what we think? Elaborate on the cost versus how much is offered. So that's a good question. Now, I'm not one to name names, but we do research our competitors. We take their courses, and the person who has not been a home inspector, who just doesn't know better, it's not their fault, because they don't know. When they go through these courses, they're PDFs. They are PDFs, and I'm not saying every other training provider. That's not. I don't want you to, think it's every training provider, because it's not. But there is one in particular that throws a bunch of things in for, right around that $700 mark, and all it is, or all they are PDFs. They don't lead to a certification. I just don't want you guys to spend your money on something that's not going to benefit you. Do you need to be certified in California? You do not. Does AHIT offer hands-on training in Florida? We do. That's where, if you call our 800 number, one of our admissions counselors can help you with that. Some states waiving the in-class training requirements due to COVID. There are, yes, Kent. For example, I know New York did. New York State, before COVID, was a state that only accepted live training, but we do have, I think it's like an 8-week live webinar going on. There's other states that have waived it as well. If you're looking for course costs, you got to call our admissions team. I don't deal with any of that. Let's see, do you need to be certified in Michigan? You do not need to be certified in Michigan. Michigan is an unregulated state. We do offer training in Michigan, but and maybe right now Washington State has an approved online training because of COVID. Again, I'm not 100% sure. I just kind of go where they tell me to go and teach the class. But again, admissions would be able to help you with that. Arizona requires live and side-by-side training. Yeah, Arizona requires ride-alongs. We do work with a company that provides those ride-alongs. Florida requires a state exam to be licensed. Does the school prepare students for passing the current exam? You do have options for that exam. You can either take the INTRNACHI exam, the National Home Inspectors exam, or I believe it's the FABI exam, which is the Florida Association of Building Inspectors. What you have to remember, though, not that you're going to leave Florida, but the National Home Inspectors exam is the only one that follows you out of that state. So if you move to another regulated state and you took, let's say, the INTRNACHI exam, you'll have to take, so let's say you're in Florida, you took the INTRNACHI exam, you passed it, you satisfy the Florida requirements, but then you wanted to move to Texas. Texas requires the National Home Inspectors exam. I recommend that you take the National Home Inspectors exam, because once you pass it, you don't have to take it again. Paulo, New Jersey, we do not provide training. That's one state. I think New Jersey and Nevada, we do not provide training in. Those are the only 2 states. And then let's see, one more here. A lot of these other ones are for our admissions team. Will it still benefit me to attend hands-on before the online material? No, do the online first. If you can. It says, I'm just in a tight spot where if I miss this one, I will not be able to attend the other one. So, I mean, look at it in a situation, because yes, the world's screwed up right now. It might benefit you so you can see what a home inspection is, because you're going to be out in the field, especially if you can't make it after, you know, this one. So that would be the exception. Normally, I would say take the online first. Are there a lot of women in the industry? Unfortunately, there's not. I would say there's probably, it is a male-dominated industry. Probably, you know, 99% of home inspectors are men. Every once in a while, I do have a female that comes through, which is fantastic because the majority of realtors are women. And I have trained some successful females. Does inspections involve swimming pools? Swimming pools would be an ancillary add-on service. And yeah, again, a lot of these are for our admissions team. So, all right, everyone.